My wife and I have known each other since we were 4 years old. Her father and my father played football in high school together, and my father was the best man at her father's first marriage. We played together as kids and lived only 2 blocks apart. My family had an antique business, and her family often came to the shows. Lisa would say she came to find me, and we would walk around the grounds together. In 7th grade, her parents divorced, and she moved with her mother, so I only saw her at the antique shows with her mother. We still walked around with each other. We met up in high school again, and she had a boyfriend. She still flirted with me at antique shows when she was not with her boyfriend. So when she broke up with her boyfriend our junior year, I asked her out. We dated for 3 months. She asked me to have sex with her, and I said no, as I believe we needed to wait until we were married. One night during a date at the fair, she said she was staying at the fair, so I went home. A couple weeks later, she let me know she hooked up with a carny and became pregnant. I told her I would help her, but she said she would take care of it, and she was not ready for a steady relationship. We obvious broke up. We kept meeting at antique shows where she would ask me to walk around with her. She even started helping my parents as a ticket taker when my parents started running shows. My wife continued to flirt with me despite being with various boyfriends. I went off to college after graduating. When I was home one Christmas, my sophomore year, I ran into her and she asked for a ride home. I took her home and we talked. She again flirted with me and tried to get more physical, but I still told her no. I went home and she called me a couple days later. I called her a couple weeks later to ask her to help out my mom as a ticket taker, and she told me she couldn't as she just had a baby. She asked me to come up. I went to her house and saw her and the baby. She confessed that she had always loved me, but she always thought I was too good for her. We talked and started dating again. After a year of dating, she broke down and told me if I really loved her, I would have sex with her. I figured we were engaged, so it was okay. And then 2 weeks later, she told me she was pregnant. At the time, one of her male friends asked my wife if the kids was his. I thought it was a bad joke, but after all that happened, I am not sure anymore. We got married, and I adopted her daughter. I thought we had a happy relationship. Everyone said we were a perfect couple, and her girlfriend said how lucky she was to have me to take care of her. After 7 years, her father died, and we were moving to a new state for work. She contacted the same carny she slept with when we were in high school and started cheating with him. She created elaborate lies, and after we moved to the state, she moved out to live with him. We both saw divorce lawyers, and basically I was told I would lose my kids. After 4 months, he kicked her out because he did not like her lack of basic housekeeping skills or having to take care of her children. She apologized and stated she was so sorry, so we got back together. She was again pregnant with his child. We kept this information from everyone. We moved again, and after about 5 years, one of her friends started cheating on her husband and introduced my wife to online hookup sites. My wife denied going on the sites, but when I found her email that she was using and looked it up, she admitted that she was on the site, but she denied having any affairs. She was just there to chat about S&M as I was not into that. We moved again, and I suspected she was cheating several times. One time when we were moving again, she stated she was stressed and needed to go stay with a friend. I told her not to leave and that I needed her help with prepping for the move, as we had to be out the next day. She kissed me, told me she loved me, and then left. I found out 3 months ago that she left to go sleep with another man. I did everything, and we were able to move again. I found another hidden email account of hers, and when confronted, she admitted to being on site but denied cheating. I told her to open it up and let me read it then to confirm she is just talking. She said no, so I packed my stuff and walked out the door. Our youngest daughter came running and begged me not to leave, so I went back in the house. My wife and I went to counseling a couple times. 3 months ago, we had a fight. She admitted to being on online sites for 8 years. I made a comment asking how many men she slept with. If it was once a year, it was 8. If it was one a month, it was 96. If it was once a week, it was 4 and 16 men. She responded without thinking that it was just 2, not counting the carny I knew about, so it was not that bad. This was when I found out that she left me to sleep with a guy when the family needed her help to move. She said she had not cheated on me in the 13 years, so I needed to get over it. So I know that 2 of my 4 children are definitely not mine biologically, and possibly a third is not mine biologically, and that my wife cheated on me over a 15-year period with 3 men, and they were long-term relationship that ended due to us moving. She claims to not have cheated in over 13 years. I stayed before because of the kids. I didn't want them growing up in a slum or not being taken care of. I did all the cleaning, cooking, tucked the kids into bed when they were little, and generally took care of them. I still help them out financially, even though they are adults. They are now all out of school, so it is just my wife and I, though our youngest son, the one she had while cheating with her Kearney lover, and his wife and kids moved in with us due to losing his apartment and job. I am gutted that she could do this to me when I was the perfect husband. She even said I was perfect, and when I ask why, all she ever says is, "I don't know." I suspected all this time and stayed, but now that I know, I want to walk away. She is the only woman I ever slept with, and I worked hard to have the fairy tale life that everyone who sees us thinks we have. However, it is all a facade. I feel I wasted all my love and devotion to a woman who will just as easily find another guy and never have another thought about me. I 39 male. Found my wife 37 female cheating on me. We've been married for 13 years and have 2 girls together, 7-year-old twins. I've known for a while things weren't right. We haven't had sex for around 8 to 9 months. At first, every time I'd come on to her, she'd push me away and say she wasn't in the mood right now. After a while, I mentioned this to her, and it turned into a huge argument in which she flat out told me she didn't want to have sex with me anymore. I was entirely devastated, but kind of brushed it off as something she said simply out of anger. I had believed she wasn't having sex with me because she was too stressed to orgasm. She'd done this previously. A couple weeks later, though, I found her second phone. Although I wasn't able to get into it because it had a password, I knew at that moment that there was someone else. It broke my heart, but I didn't bring it up with her. In the following weeks, I became extremely suspicious, especially since she works from home and I do not. I started lying to her about when I had work so that I could see if she was having another guy over. Days later, a silver Benz pulls into our driveway. Around 10 minutes later, my wife gets in. I couldn't see the other person because of the tints. They drove off to what I later found out was a hibachi restaurant. I didn't follow the car like I had planned on. After I saw her get into the car, I couldn't even bring myself to drive. I sat there and just cried. I cried in the car until they pulled back up. The car sat parked for a few minutes in my driveway, and I walked up and opened the driver's door. I want to say this. I've always been a person who thought it was stupid to get mad at the Mistress when it was your partner that cheated, but I didn't know how to react, and in a cloud of anger, I pulled the driver out of the car, ready to fight. Then I realized that it was a girl. It didn't click for me at that moment. I just stood there confused. My wife was screaming at me to stop, and she got out of the car and immediately started crying and apologizing to me. I pulled my wife inside of the house and made her explain things. She basically told me she was gay and she was going to tell me, but she didn't know how to, she was too ashamed to. Every time I tried to ask about the mistress, she started deflecting my questions and pretty much said, "It's not important." I told her I knew about the second phone she had and asked to go through it. She got extremely defensive and said no. Things got loud and ugly very fast. It was a lot of screaming and crying, and I will admit, we both put our hands on each other. I ended up getting the second phone from under her nightstand, and she attacked me. I grabbed her by her neck and told her to open the phone, or I would tell her family she's been cheating on me with a woman. For some context, her family is extremely conservative and does not support or allow that in the family. Which is why I did understand why she'd be afraid to tell me, but that does not excuse leading me on, lying and cheating on me. She gave me the password when I started calling her dad from my phone. I sat going through her phone for almost 2.5 hours. To keep things short, she was messing around with a 19-year-old girl named Dallas. Yes, she cheated on me with a teenager. I asked her when they met, and she said a year ago, but I actually found Instagram messages between them from 2019, meaning she's known this girl since she was at least 15. They sent each other nudes pretty often. But what hurt the most were the messages where they'd be planning to meet up. My wife would literally just send this girl a photo of my schedule. And oddly enough, that hurt way worse than all the nudes and all the dirty talk. In messages from earlier this year, they talked about how she was going to tell me everything and how they were going to get married after Dallas had graduated. The photos were even worse. 70% of the gallery was nudes. There were videos of them doing sexual things in my house, in my bed. There were photos of this girl with my kids at bowling alleys, malls, skating rinks, parks, you name it. She was even with my kids when I went away to see my sick mother back in February. A couple hours later, things start to simmer down. I told her to leave the house because I couldn't look at her face anymore. She called Dallas to pick her up, and over the next few weeks she moved in with her. We've been separated since April but aren't divorced yet. Her family has no clue about any of this, as I've made an agreement with her. As long as she doesn't allow her GF around my kids, I wouldn't tell her family. We have been recently trying to get a divorce and do it as smoothly as possible. Like I said before, I don't want my kids around her girlfriend, but I've brought her up around them, and it's clear that they really like her. I can't tell them what happened without making my wife look like a villain, so now my kids think I'm the villain. It also doesn't help that Dallas is doing pretty well for herself. We are very different people. I'm a white guy who grew up pretty poor and worked for everything I have. She's biracial with a black mom and white dad, and all she's ever known is money. I'm not sure what she does for a living, but I do know her and her family are very wealthy people. She often buys my girls toys and things they ask for, which is why I believe they gravitate to her. I don't like it. I don't like her. And I wish she would just go away. I wish I could just have my family back. Even though it was my wife that cheated, it feels like everything is Dallas's fault. I wish my wife would have never met her. Sorry for the length of this. I just need a little advice moving forward and a place to vent. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and if you enjoy, smash that like button.